Welcome to the Speak Like a Leader podcast with John Bates. Welcome to the show. With me today is Dr. Paul Jenkins, and he is an author, a speaker, a podcaster, and a positivity psychologist. And we met first at the Performance Academy hosted by Michelle Villalobos. Hello, Michelle. Thank you. We're glad we were both there. And then we met again at the NSA, the National Speakers Association here in Utah. And I was even recently on Dr. Paul's podcast. So if you haven't heard that yet, I'll put a link in the chat. We had a fun talk about the monkey mind and all that kind of stuff. And there was just more to talk about. And so I invited Dr. Paul to join me here on Live Like a Leader, and he accepted. Thank you for being here, Dr. Paul.
Woohoo! Yes, this is fun, John.
It is fun.
Anytime I get to interact with you, my neurons start to fire. And this is good.
Yeah, it's good. Well, and I think that although I don't only want to hang out with people that I agree with, I think that you and I have a lot of really interesting and useful crossover, and yet we kind of come at it from very different angles. And I think that can be really useful. So let's start, because I like to talk about the importance of communication, and I like to kind of hear a little bit about your journey and things. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up becoming Dr. Paul Jenkins, the positivity psychologist.
It's such an interesting question, and my brain is going to some very specific points in my history as you shared that, because rarely does someone call me Dr. Paul Jenkins, the entire title, right?
Yeah.
Especially with my middle initial H. And I don't hear that very often, but I used to be Dr. Jenkins.
Yeah.
And then I became Dr. Paul. And that was a transition for me. So if you come back with me about 2 decades, chapter 1 in my book, Pathological Positivity, which I can talk about that title too, but
yeah, let's talk about that in a minute.
Well, chapter 1 is titled Lightning Strikes.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been on the planet long enough, John, to know that you go along kind of expecting things to go a certain way, right? And then boom,
yeah,
some thunderous bolt of lightning just takes you off your feet.
Yeah.
Right. And it can, I use that as a metaphor, obviously. It could be a health concern. It could be a financial problem. It could be a divorce. It could be a bankruptcy, whatever it is. Right. Mm-hmm. And just boom, it just knocks you down. And for me, it was a bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And John, this happened at a time when it shouldn't have.
Yeah. So tell us more about that. Say more.
Well, you know how you get it in your head, if you do things the right way, then stuff's just going to be slick, right?
Yeah.
Smooth.
Yep.
I don't know where I learned that lesson, because life hasn't taught me that.
Right. Yeah. No, we get kind of conned into thinking that somehow, but I don't know where. Maybe we con ourselves.
Well, and I'd already been through graduate school. I got a PhD in psychology. And I've set up this busy outpatient psychotherapy practice. I was booked out solid for a couple of months.
Yeah.
You couldn't even get an appointment with me, right? I had a waiting list.
Right.
And I had negative cash flow for 2 quarters in a row.
Yeah.
Now, with the kind of math I do now, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Right?
But you were so busy.
I was busy. In fact, and my brain went to, well, I just need to work more.
Yeah.
John, I couldn't work more. I'm already working from dawn to dusk.
Yeah.
Trading an hour at a time. Okay, this is part of the problem with my old business model.
Yeah.
Trading an hour at a time to sit with people, and then I'd bill their insurance company, who would deny my claim. and send me into about a 120-day process of filing
Oh,
additional paperwork, which
yeah.
is so
Oh,
much fun,
yeah.
until they finally agreed to give me like 60% on a good day of what I had
Yeah.
billed.
Yeah.
And it was
Oh,
illegal for me to bill the client anything. What is wrong with this model?
yeah. I know
Right?
something's definitely, I mean, like, side note, like, something's definitely wrong with our model.
Well, and I found myself in a position where, I've got my kids are grown by now. I've got my youngest is a teenager. My oldest
Mhm.
is just leaving the house,
Mhm.
and I'm supposed to be set by now, right? I mean,
Yeah,
supposed to be.
supposed
This
to
is the
be. Yeah.
story that was going on in my head.
Sure.
And here I find myself in this position. And that's what lightning strikes is all about. And I remember when I was just going through that experience, we were going on a little road trip up to Washington, where my wife is from.
Uh-huh.
And my father in law, we're in the minivan. Okay, got all the kids. It's Thanksgiving or whatever, right? And we're heading up to Washington to visit family. My father in law sent me a prepaid Visa so I could put gas in the minivan.
Wow.
And now I'm going to talk to this man that I promised 20 years earlier I
Yeah.
would take care of his daughter.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
what the crap?
Yeah.
But what shocked me, what surprised me, John, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but I'm coming out of that bankruptcy court, which I never thought I wanted to do. I didn't sign
Yeah.
up for this. It's not on my
Yeah.
bucket list.
Yeah.
Here I am coming out of bankruptcy court, and I'm surprised that everything is still in color.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I don't even know what I was expecting. Like some
Yeah.
20s black and white movie, everybody's shuffling around in trench coats and their hat down to
Yeah.
here, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, birds are singing in the trees.
Yeah.
There's children playing in the playground over there. Everything's still in color.
Yeah.
And you know how you learn things and you know it, but you don't believe it
Yeah.
until your life circumstances teach you. I'd been teaching my clients for years before that circumstances are neutral. And what matters is what we do with it in our head,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I had that experience that it really hit home with me. And I had to lose everything financially to realize I didn't need that to be
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
Now, I could have told you that, but I didn't really know it.
Yeah. Totally.
And I
Well,
think that's the blessing, the gift of adversity
yeah.
and problems. But it was after that, John, that I finally woke up financially, professionally, and I went a whole different direction. And that's
Yeah.
when I shifted over from traditional psychotherapy to now exclusively positive psychology coaching.
Yeah.
I haven't done therapy in 15 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well,
there's more to the story, obviously, but it had to come from that. I couldn't learn it from the books.
right.
I couldn't learn it from the lectures and the seminars.
Yeah.
Intellectually, yeah, I knew I could
Yeah.
I could explain it academically, but it entered into my heart at
Yeah.
that point and made me who I am now.
Okay. So I want to roll you back to before that moment, coming out and realizing things were still in color and the birds were still singing.
Yeah.
What, I mean, and I could imagine that maybe you already alluded to what the lowest moment was, but what was it like? Like, what was the lowest, what was the worst place that you were in through that whole thing? I mean, like, one of them probably was getting a prepaid Visa so you could pay the gas, right?
Oh,
having to
that
talk to,
yeah.
your father-in-law, but like bring me into the lowest moment of that experience.
I've always thought of myself as a good husband and father.
Mhm.
And during that time, it was hard to see that.
Yeah. Well,
I
I think a lot of people, like myself included, like I see my role as a provider and a protector on some level. And,
yeah,
like when I was in a position in 2023 with a shoulder infection that I think, I've talked about on this show. I think you know about it. Like I couldn't function. And
yeah,
it was it was really, really awful to have part of my identity be that I was a provider and then feel like I couldn't provide or protect.
right, right. I still have painful recollections of the look on my wife's face when we realized that this was inevitable,
Yeah.
that we're going off the edge
Yeah.
financially,
Yeah. No.
right?
Yep.
And and feeling like a failure, feeling like I had done something wrong. Now I'm describing
Mhm.
these as feelings, but these are
Yeah.
actually thoughts.
Yeah.
But when you connect to the feeling that's generated by the thought, I have failed, I
Yeah.
have disappointed and let down everyone who's important to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's the feeling? Because a feeling can be described in one word. And failure doesn't even capture it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And then all of the mental gymnastics that go with it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I'm evil at some level, or
Uh-huh.
maybe I have completely fallen from grace or whatever.
Yeah. 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 Well, my company declared bankruptcy in the dot-com days. We raised well over $80 million. And then
Wow.
when the market turned, the guys, our investors came to us and they said, okay, guys, you've done a good job and you've done what we asked you, but we don't think you can be profitable quickly enough. And the market has changed. And so we're gonna pull the plug. And
Yeah.
I was so ashamed and so embarrassed and so angry and so sad. And
Check,
I felt
check,
so
check.
stupid. And and
Yeah.
I went in a corner and cried about it and almost died of an autoimmune disease that was brought on by the stress and lack of sleep of that whole thing, because for a long
Yeah.
time I'd been sleeping for like 4 or 5 hours a night. And then we went out of business. And it went from good, exciting, fun stress to just absolutely, you are a loser stress.
Devastating. Yeah.
And so, I know I'm somewhat familiar with that feeling. And I think that I know that I had value judgments about myself being somebody who declared bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And they were not good value judgments.
Oh, John, I used to think that people who filed bankruptcy were flakes or dishonest or
Right.
somehow evil at some level, right?
Yeah.
I have a whole lot more empathy now.
Yeah,
eh,
yeah, me too.
and
Me
I'm
too,
grateful
yeah.
for that empathy. I mean, I've
Yeah.
I've been able to process this through the principles that I've always taught my clients. I've now
Yeah.
applied those in my life
Yeah, well,
and
that's
proven
cool,
them.
that's cool. Yeah, that's cool you did that, and it's cool you had those things.
Well,
So
and
there's that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to share one other little piece of this because
Yeah.
I had already launched my podcast.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I launched my podcast, Live on Purpose Radio, where you were a guest recently in
Yeah.
2007.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
cool.
during the high life right? I mean,
Oh
this is
yeah.
while the economy's still clicking and none of my
Right. Yeah. And here
investments, I
comes
called them investments
2008.
then.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I realize they were gambles now because I've learned a lot
Yeah.
about investing too, but I'm in
Uh-huh.
that high point and things are just starting to turn and I'm having some struggles. And it was during that time that I had Mary Louise Zeller on my show. Now, if you don't know Mary Louise, she's an octogenarian who is a 6th-degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Wow.
Okay, this grandma can kick you the next Thursday.
Uh-huh.
And and she knows a little bit about my situation because we had developed a little relationship where I was so inspired by her. I mean,
Yeah.
she's got like 8 world championships under her belt,
Wow.
18 national championships. She went to the Sydney Olympics when she was 55 or something like that. I mean,
That's
and
so
took
great.
4th in the
Yeah.
18 and over division. She was the most over of
Wow.
anybody.
What? Wow.
So I'm talking to Mary Louise,
Uh-huh.
and she says, Paul, the troops aren't coming. And she let that set in for a minute and then said, we are the troops.
Yeah.
And she might as well have kicked me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad she didn't. That would have hurt.
Yeah.
But she kick-started me into something that I had never really seen before that. See, I think part of my job is to illuminate the obvious,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is cool
I
because I
like
get
that.
paid
Yeah.
to tell people things they already
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And Mary Louise did that for me. It was the first time I saw myself curled up in a corner in fetal position, licking
Yeah.
my wounds because I
Yep.
was
Good.
blaming the
Been
economy, my
there.
business partner,
Yep.
the insurance companies. I was blaming those guys I invested with.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much that was tying my hands.
Yeah.
That who am I waiting for?
Yeah.
The guys I invested with, they promised me, John, that they would pay me back. And I'm sure they will as soon as they get out of prison. They're
Yeah.
probably going to pay me back, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What if I were still waiting for the troops to come?
Yeah. No, it'd be a long wait.
So it gave me that kickstart that I needed to get back into what I call agent mode. I think we've got victim mode, we've got agent mode.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not talking about being a victim of crime or of abuse or of
Yeah.
circumstance. I'm talking about a victim way of seeing the world. It's a paradigm
Right.
and it determines how you show up. But that got me going in the right direction to actually produce my way out of that
Yeah.
economic problem.
So was that before or after you walked out of the court and realized that that the birds still sang?
It was about that same time. I think it was a little before that I had that conversation with Mary Louise.
Yeah, good.
And all of this, I've learned this more and more, especially as I'm getting to be an old guy,
Uh-huh.
that it's a process, not an event.
Yeah. Ooh, God, that's really good. Say that again.
That it's a process, not an event.
Not an event. That's really, really good. Yep.
And so it meshes together a little bit too. And you've probably seen this through your own experience. It's like, yeah, there are events, like walking out of the bankruptcy court,
Yeah.
having the
Yeah.
conversation with Mary Louise Zeller.
Yeah.
Another friend of mine, I don't know if you know Dr. Jeffrey McGee.
I don't.
Um,
I don't think I do.
so I was at an event, and this is about that same time. I'm at an event with Dr. McGee and sitting at dinner with him. And he's this brilliant consulting psychologist. I mean, he works with big companies on the psychology behind productivity and
Uh-huh.
professional development, all that. And I'm explaining to Jeff what's going on. And he's listening. He's the compassionate, he's listening. I finish and he leans forward and he says, Paul, you suck. And I'm like, thanks, Jeff. I love you too. But what he meant, he said, no, I mean that in the most loving way. You suck resources. You are consuming more than you produce, as evidenced by your financials. You suck. And it gave me a whole new look at. It's not that I suck personally. It's that the way I'm
Yeah.
showing up is consuming more than it's producing. He says you got to
Yeah.
turn that around if you want to fix your economic problem. You
Yeah.
got to produce more than you consume.
Yeah.
And that's another event, right? But all of these
Yeah.
things come together to teach me exactly what I needed to know.
Yeah.
And I look back on it
Yeah.
now and I'm like, that was perfect for me. I didn't think that at the time,
No. Yeah.
right?
Totally. You know, I also think I would be remiss not to mention Mike Michalowicz and Profit First at this
Oh
point.
yeah.
Um, that book, definitely, that book and that method is how I survived my shoulder infection and just not working through 2023, is because I had read that book and I had implemented those processes, and I had the
Yes.
savings and backup to make it through that thing. Um,
Well, and Mike's program actually became part of my solution too,
yeah,
because my accountant, John Briggs,
whom I
is
love, another
very
shared
closely
friend. Yeah.
tied to Mike Michalowicz, and I've showed up on
Yes.
Mike's show before too, or it was on his mastermind group. I did a little
Yeah.
presentation for his inner circle group, and
Yeah.
um, those principles. I mean, it's not magic, it's not luck,
No.
it's
Yeah.
principle, right?
Yes. Yes.
And you connect to the principles, and you can get different outcomes.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, our focus gets in the way.
Yeah. Well, it's another example, I think, profit first and implementing that system, which is not as cold-blooded as it sounds. If you don't know profit first, go look it up, and it's
Mhm.
definitely much more positive than it sounds. But that whole thing, because I think I sort of treated my finances like it was an event, not a process, before that book. And when
Yeah,
I started treating
yeah.
my finances more like a process, boy, did that work.
Mm, right.
But so
That's
now, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying it's our focus that gets in the way. And even like
Mm,
when you say profit first sound, I mean, it's like, oh, those nasty capitalists or whatever,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When you understand that profit is a reflection of value that you have already created or promised to someone else,
Yeah.
it looks different. It's a
Yeah.
strategic side effect. It's not the end
Yeah.
goal. But
Yep.
to put profit first means let's make sure that we're creating more than we're consuming. We're
Consuming. Yeah,
producing
exactly.
more value than we're consuming. That's all it
Yeah.
does, is it measures that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Good
think
point.
Mike totally understands that. And when you read his book, you'll see, like
Yeah.
you were saying, John, it's dialed into principle.
Yeah.
And while we're giving shout outs, I mentioned John Briggs too, and he just came out with
Yeah.
his book, The 3.3 Rule.
Yes.
Also
Which
brilliant.
is fabulous. Yeah. I can't wait till he's
Ugh,
out giving the speech he's working on right now. It's really,
yes.
really good. It's so fun. It's so fun.
S- Very good. Yeah. Isn't it fun that we're surrounded by such brilliant people?
It is amazing. It's making me realize just what genius I'm surrounded by. And it's really,
Yeah.
really, it's really wonderful. So now I want to ask you, you came out of that bankruptcy court, you had these maybe difficult in the moment interactions that sort of woke you up and pointed you in a different direction. What was it that had you actually take that step to say, okay, I'm not going to go back to psychotherapy. I'm going to focus on being a positive psychologist?
That, again, was a process, not an event. And I would
Yep.
guess, if I look at the whole history of that, it started way before the bankruptcy because my heart felt called to something. And if you can connect with that, I think we have an innate sense that we've got a purpose
Yeah.
on this planet.
Yep.
You know what my first major was when I went to school, when I went to the university?
No, what?
Chemical engineering.
Okay.
I was a science geek. I mean, I was really good at the math and science in high school.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
that's
grew
good.
up in a little town called Heber City, Utah,
Yep. Yep.
where we didn't even
Beautiful
have a
little town.
psychology
Yeah.
class. Yeah, I mean, we
Uh-huh.
had cows right next door, but we didn't have a
Yep.
psychology class. And I took third period from Uncle Harvey and fourth period from Aunt Sherry. I mean, this is kind of where I was, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about psychology, but I was good at the math and science. So that's what I signed up for. And then I spent 2 years volunteering as a missionary for my church in Finland, of all places. I learned
Love
Finnish.
Finland.
Oh, well, don't get me started on Finland. I mean, that
Okay.
is really near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
But I came home from that experience realizing that what I really wanted to do, what really lit me up, is having conversations about principles that change your life with real people.
Yeah.
And I switched from chemical engineering over to psychology, never looked back. But I started expanding that, like I said, about 15 years ago when I went through that transition.
Uh-huh.
Clinical psychology was a whole lot closer to what my core purpose is than chemical engineering was.
Yeah.
But it morphed again, when I got into
Yeah.
positive psychology. People tell me all the time, "Oh, you're so lucky to have a job that you love." Luck? I made this. This
Yeah.
job did not
Nice.
exist. I had to
Yeah.
create it.
Yeah.
And the life of an entrepreneur is kind of a gut-wrenching experience sometimes.
For sure. Yes.
So,
Well, and
and there's a piece of that, John. If I can, I would love to just acknowledge one of the principles that was getting in
yeah,
my
yeah.
way.
No, let's talk about them. I want, yeah, let's get some of this stuff you talk about into this
And all of
conversation
this,
right now.
and by the way, this is where it was all born. Okay. I didn't learn all of this in graduate school. That gave me the academic foundation for everything that I needed to learn from my own life experience and from hundreds, thousands of clients now that I've worked with over 3
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah.
So my brain has a unique ability to consolidate these ideas into models.
Mm.
And those models then become tools that help people to understand how to operate the equipment of their own mind.
Yeah.
And I do certifications to teach people how to use these in their own work. I mean, that's what I'm all
Uh-huh.
about now.
Yeah.
But one of the things I learned through that experience is that my focus was getting me off. So check it out. When you interact with others, communication, I know you teach a lot about communication and leadership,
Yeah.
especially. When we communicate with someone else, or even as we interact with our circumstances, which is an interesting application of this, but notice that your focus is somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a process I call metacognition. And that's a fancy made up psychobabble word. We make up words in psychology. It makes us feel smart.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. Okay. If you break it down, cognition means thinking. Metacognition is a higher level. It's thinking about thinking.
Yes.
And you notice that you can do this,
Yeah.
as I call it to your attention. Now, you got to be careful with it. You can hurt yourself. But metacognition creates a little space. And in that
Mm-hmm.
space is where choice exists.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say that again. Metacognition creates a space. In that space is where choice exists. And until you see it as a choice, it's not. And I didn't see that it was my thinking. It wasn't my circumstances. It wasn't the bankruptcy. It wasn't the insurance companies or those guys I invested with. It was my thinking, but I didn't see it at the time.
Yeah.
So go back to focus for a minute. Notice that when we interact, when you and I interact, let's just simplify this and say my focus is either about me or about you. Fair?
Yep.
Now, it might be about something else too, but just to simplify it, is this about me or is it about you? Now, go to the feeling part. Is my focus about how I feel or about how you feel? Okay, now, if what I've done is I've designed a little quadrant model to demonstrate this. And so for those
people that are not watching, tell us what the
not
quadrants
visual,
are.
you're not. So, and I can give you a copy of this too. If you just go to drpauljenkins.com, spelled with a DR, /John Bates. Okay, so remember my name, remember John's name. drpauljenkins.com /John Bates. I'll give you the visual. Okay, I've got a PDF full color copy so that you can take a look at it.
And we'll put it in the show notes too.
This is just one of those traditional quadrant models, okay? And if you just picture the rows is who it's about. Is this about me or is this about you? About me on the top, about you on the bottom. And then if we look at the columns, it's how I feel on the left and how you feel on the right. Okay? So you overlay those two and you get your 4 quadrants, right? So the upper left-hand quadrant, and I've color-coded them too because it gives us a way to talk about it. The red one is how I feel about me.
Yeah.
Okay? Then moving over to the upper right-hand, it's how you feel about me.
Okay.
If we move down to the purple quadrant, down on the bottom, on the left-hand side there, it's how I feel about you. And then we move over to the green one. This is the one I call the influence quadrant. It's how you feel about you. Now, remember, we're talking about our focus.
Yeah.
Okay. Where's my focus? When I'm having a conversation with you, John, is my focus red? Meaning, as I'm talking to you, am I really more focused on how I feel about me? Okay.
Isn't that where we mostly always are as human beings?
Well, you're going to see that we go to these quadrants all the time. And I am not here to tell you how to think. I don't have that kind of authority. But I do invite you to notice. So if my focus is on how I feel about me, here's some examples of that red quadrant. Am I good enough? Do I even know what I'm doing here? Am I qualified? You talk about the monkey mind, okay? Is this sounding familiar now?
Very familiar, yeah.
Am I even qualified to be on this call right now with John Bates? Okay, that's red.
Yeah.
How I feel about me.
Yeah.
Now, I've listed on the model what the pitfall is for each of these quadrants. So if my focus is on how I feel about me, I am going to experience self-consciousness.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about a healthy sense of self-awareness or mindfulness, okay? I'm talking about that, oh, am I good enough?
Yeah.
Kind of a focus.
Yes.
All right. Now let's pop over to the orange for a minute. Okay. Now my focus is on how you feel about me. So I'm constantly wondering, does John think I've got this? Does John think I'm an idiot? Does he think I'm good enough, cute enough, smart enough to even be here having this conversation? Okay. Welcome back to junior high.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Oh my gosh. Do they like me?
Yeah. Yep.
Am I going to fit in with them? Right. Okay. So the pitfall in the orange, when my focus is on how you feel about me, I'm going to experience insecurity.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly relying on external sources to validate me. Yeah. Right. That's a buzzword in the mental health industry, validation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a big fan for a lot of reasons, but
yeah.
But whether it's red or orange, in either of those top two quadrants, we experience anxiety.
Mm.
You gave me a sticker in Miami. Do you remember we were at Michelle Villalobos' event,
Was it
and you
was it
gave
this
me
one?
that's the one. And I have to hear it in Snoop Dogg's voice,
That's right.
right? As he gives his little sing-songy, rhymey voice, and he
Yeah,
says,
yeah.
"Don't be nervous, be at their service."
That's right. Yes.
That's what the sticker says.
Yeah.
If you are focused on you, if this is about you, you will feel anxiety.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
You with me?
Nervous. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Nervousness, anxiety, apprehension. And even if it's positive, okay, so you can have a very positive, oh, I'm all that in a bag of chips, or
Mhm.
everybody thinks I'm awesome. Well, what about when they don't?
Yeah.
See, it feels very tenuous when it depends on how other people feel about me.
Yeah.
And people can get addicted to that, right? To that feeling,
I can
the
think of some
applause, the
people. Yeah.
standing ovation.
Yeah. Yep.
And as long as I'm getting the ovation of the crowd, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yep.
you know at some point that's going to go away,
Yeah.
right? So let's drop down to the bottom. Now, what if my focus is not about me? Okay, now it's about you. But if in that purple quadrant, if my focus is on how I feel about you, like, do I think you're good enough?
Yeah. Right.
Do I do I think you really deserve to have me on your show?
Right.
Okay, now how's that feeling to you right about now?
Well, I think it's the word in the quadrant. It feels judgmental.
It feels judgment and criticism is what we run into
Yeah.
there.
Criticism. Yeah.
Even if it's positive. I mean, picture this, John. What if I'm like figuratively reaching out and patting you on the head?
Yeah.
Yes, John, I approve of you.
Yeah.
It's like, what gives me the authority to approve of you?
Right.
Right? And I have shown up that way. I'm embarrassed to admit.
Well, sure.
I
We
mean,
all
I'm a
have, but yeah.
professional psychologist, and parents do this all the time. Okay,
Right.
because where's a parent's focus? It's on how we feel about our kids
Yeah.
and how we feel about their choices.
Yeah.
Do we approve of this or not?
Yeah.
Right?
You just gave me a penny drop moment for Johnny, like
Mm.
let's go to that green quadrant when you're ready. Cause I think that's where I want to live,
Okay. Yeah. And I'm like, do you like your choices so far?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Because those
yes and no,
pitfalls
right?
are real.
Yeah. I'm
I mean,
very happy to be aware of
the
that on a new
judgment,
level.
the judgment of how I feel, either about myself, that anxious self judgment of the red, or that critical other judgment of the purple, that's risky.
Yeah.
And we can't turn it off fully. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
I've heard you teach before, like with the monkey mind, it comes free in
Yeah.
the box with every human.
Yeah. 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 I don't think we're getting rid of it. Like you can
No.
learn to manage it. You can learn to maybe even turn it down a little, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Well, and you remember what I said about metacognition.
Mm-hmm.
Metacognition creates a space. When you think about your thinking, and I'm inviting you to notice it, it puts you in a position of choice.
Yeah.
Until you see it as a choice, it's not. And
Mm-hmm.
you'll roll with whatever your programming is. And that's
Yeah.
kind of goofy. So let's go green, shall we?
Let's
Let's
do
go
it.
green. It's no longer about me. Okay. How I feel is only secondary. Now my focus is on how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
This is what I've labeled the influence quadrant. And it allows us to be free of anxiety. That's why I loved your sticker. Don't be nervous. Be at their service. It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about
Yep.
how you can show up and bless people's lives. And when your focus is there, the anxiety goes away.
Yeah.
It goes away.
Yeah.
Actually, two things happen when you go green. Okay, when you really get your focus into that green influence quadrant, two things happen. Number one, people will love you. Oh, they'll love you. They'll want to be around you. They'll want to hang out.
Yeah.
They'll want to listen. But if you're doing it for that purpose, it's not green.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
orange. Okay,
Yeah.
if you really care about how other people feel about you, that's orange.
You're not in the right quadrant.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
so it's a strategic side effect of going green. It's not the reason you go green. It's just one of the benefits.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I said two things will happen. You will have influence. You will have influence with other people. But if you're doing it for that purpose, it's not green, it's purple.
Yep.
Because you're like, oh, they need me. They need what I have to offer, which may be true. But the problem is, if your focus is there, it spoils it.
Yeah.
So it's, and people ask me all the time, so how do I go green? Because I really want to have influence with people and I really want people to like me. Okay, well, we're talking purple and orange motivation.
Right. Yeah.
To go green. Or I want to quit feeling so bad about myself. That's red.
Yeah.
I've let me just share with you one example of where this hit home for me. Because when I was young, my mom enrolled me in what would now be called junior jazz basketball. It was Little League Basketball League in the community.
Okay.
And Coach Klein, this big German guy, his son was our star player. Rick could shoot 3-pointers when we were like 10.
Yeah.
Anyway, Coach Klein is the coach. And I remember one day he pulled me aside. And I was a peewee. John, my nickname in high school was Yoda. And it wasn't because of my tall stature. I didn't get my growth spurt until I was a junior, late in my junior year. So as a Little League basketball player, I'm this little, mom thought it would be good for me.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm showing up, but I'm not really contributing much. He pulls me aside and he puts that big German arm around my little shoulders. He said, Paul, thank you for coming. We couldn't have done it without you. We had just beat the Lakers. They're from Midway. Right? And it's like, and I just felt 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
I even knew that he was lying. He could have done it without me. I think I maybe made one pass to one of my team members or something. Yeah. But he cared. He was in green. He cared about how this little boy felt about himself.
Yeah.
And you know what's really cool, John? I heard him speak. He became a fairly prominent leader in the community. And I heard him speak at an event. It must have been 40 years later. I hadn't seen this man in forever. And he's speaking at an event. And he just killed it. And people are coming up afterwards. You know, they want to shake his hand and thank him. And I'm in the line. And as I get closer to, because I'm going to go shake his hand. I'm going to remind him of our earlier association. He catches my eye. And he immediately recognizes me. And he pulls me in a big bear hug and says, Paul, so good to see you. I love you.
Oh.
John, I would march into battle with that man.
Yeah, yeah. You're
you know what I mean?
Cry. Yeah.
Dude, I had other Little League coaches that I don't even remember their names.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Because they're showing up in purple. They're like, come on, you guys can do better.
Yeah.
Which is true, but purple. And we felt criticized.
Yeah.
Even though that's one of the most common ways people coach.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
With sports teams, but also in teams at work. Leaders.
Yeah, everywhere.
Do you have green leaders in your life? Coach Klein, for me, he earned my love. He earned the right to influence me.
Yeah. It's a great way to put it. earned the right to influence you.
Yeah.
And I love metacognicizing about being in situations and really being focused on how do you feel about you around me,
Yeah.
right?
What if our focus is there?
Yeah. No, that's really, really good.
Every time I'm speaking to a new audience, and John, you helped me to do this last year because I was invited to do 4 programs for educators in Poland.
Uh-huh. I remember, yeah.
And my monkey mind's kicking in with, oh, some happy, clappy American is going to come over and tell him how to be happy. He doesn't even know.
Right.
I got the monkey chattering away in the back seat. If you guys aren't familiar with the monkey mind, go listen to my interview with John on my show because we talked about it there. And John, I know you teach it.
Yeah.
But I'm getting this chatter going on, and I realized, you know what? Here I am in the insecurity of focusing on how they feel about me. And
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was totally made up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is
Right. Yeah. You
goofy when
hadn't
you
gone
think
there
about it.
yet. Yeah.
But all I needed to do is get myself back into the green quadrant. This is not about me. How I feel is only secondary. How are they feeling
Right.
about themselves? John, as soon as my focus shifted to that, the anxiety was gone.
Yeah.
And I showed up in a much more powerful way.
Yeah.
It's like you
Woo.
being the drill instructor, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep. For your
do I
greatness.
want John Bates on my team? Heck yeah.
Yeah.
You know? Because you're
Yeah.
one of those green leaders, John. In my experiences with you, you show up in a way that you really care about how your clients feel about themselves.
Yeah. I
And I
hadn't
know,
put words to it, but I do care about that.
yeah,
I appreciate having the words to it now.
that's why you have the right to influence people.
Yeah. Thank you.
But
Yeah.
watch
That's
out. I mean, if
really,
you do it for that
yeah.
reason, it shifts to purple and then people feel
Right.
criticized.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Isn't
It's
that
pretty
crazy?
funny. Yeah. It is.
Yeah. I said earlier, my job is to illuminate the obvious. I am the psychologist who gets to figure out why this stuff works. I
Yeah.
mean, I've got another model about why service works. It's called Happynomics. I've got another model about why faith works. It's called positivity. I
Yeah.
mean, this is the way my brain works. It creates a model for what you have proven through your professional experience. And you said earlier, we've kind of arrived at some similar things on different
Yeah.
paths.
Yeah.
And that's because principles tend to be true,
Yeah.
whether you believe them or not. I mean, like gravity. How often do you get
Yeah.
up and think, oh, I wonder if gravity's on today?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. All right. Yeah. I don't believe
It
in
just,
gravity.
no, but
Yeah.
it'll demonstrate itself to you
Yeah. Exactly.
repeatedly, right? So we notice these principles and we observe them from our different viewpoints. And the more
Yeah.
we can tune people into those principles, the more their outcomes can change.
Yeah.
Because all of life's outcomes are determined by principle. That's
Yeah.
why I ended up in a bankruptcy. It wasn't an accident. It was the natural consequence of choices I had made.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Well,
embrace that now.
and I think that there
Now.
are a lot of people whose lives are better off because you went through that. And thank heavens for the people that said those things you needed to hear that were not necessarily the things you wanted to hear at the time. And I'm glad you
Right.
heard them,
Me too.
because you have, you've brought a lot of great things to life out of that thing that felt initially like a failure, right?
Yeah. And I don't know
And
how many I missed, John. I mean,
yeah,
we're blind to a lot of, I've shared with you the ones I noticed,
yeah,
the ones I
yeah,
did
yeah, of
hear.
course. Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I want to point out, it's a little sneaky of me to do this, but that
You
coach,
sneaky
what was
guy.
it? What was his name?
Coach Klein?
Coach Klein. So he's a fantastic coach. And I also want to point out that even though he's a fantastic coach, there was this guy named Paul on the other side of that stuff that had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was a child.
Yeah.
Right? And I think there's a part of us that's always kind of a child.
Of course.
At least if we can retain that kind of humility and that fresh appreciation for what's available to us and allow the Coach Kleins of the world to put their arm around us.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And show us who we are instead of listening to the monkey mind and getting caught up in all of the anxieties and the judgments.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and there is something that's gotten a lot more inspiring to me over the years about just showing up, whether you're the star of the team or not, whether you feel like you're really making a difference or not, like just showing up is, it's a big deal. And it's way more inspiring to me now at this stage in my life than maybe it used to be. So, so thank you for showing up. So listen, I know that we're up against our time here and I want to be respectful. And I think we have more to talk about. I mean, I think, we ought to have you come back and share some more of your models, and people can find you at drpauljenkins.com, which is DR for doctor, not the full written out thing, drpauljenkins.com/John Bates. There'll be some things for you there, courtesy of Dr. Paul.
That's where you'll get a copy of the influence quadrant that we talked about today.
And I'll also put a link to liveonpurposeradio.com. It's been around since 2007. So one of the early podcasters who's still going. And we'll put a link to my episode there, but also to the whole kit and caboodle. You can go back and catch up since 2007. And I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thanks for sharing your journey and those low points and those high points and those lessons. I think you're fabulous, and I'm glad you're in the world, and I'm glad you're in my world, Dr. Paul.
Oh, thank you, John, and the feeling's mutual. You're welcome for what I've contributed, and thank you for the opportunity, because I think we're not done yet as well.
Not at all. Yeah, no, I think we got stuff coming. So, thank you for joining us and listening. This makes no difference without the generosity of your listening. Dr. Paul and I can talk, but it doesn't have the same weight as it does when you listen and you share it and you let us make a difference for you. So thank you for joining us today. And Dr. Paul, thank you for being here. And we will see you next time on livelikealeader.show. Thank you for joining the Speak Like a Leader podcast. Go be awesome.